evening and welcome to Talk With. My name is KAMOTA MAYONDI. You are watching live TV on channel 112 on your Top Star decoder. This evening on Talk With, we talk with Dr. GABRIEL MPUNDU, who is the chairperson publications of the Zambia Medical Association. Welcome to Talk With, Dr. MPUNDU.
Thank you very much.
Yes, I'm excited to speak with you on the legislation and regulations of traditional, or what we term alternative medicines. And just to start the program, we have some statistics. According to statistics, 70% of the Zambian population will at some point or another use traditional medicine. And we have institutions like the World Health Organization who have recognized traditional medicine as a de facto economical substitute to modern medicine in the developing world. So with regard to this, when it comes to our own situation, looking at Zambia, can we briefly explain what we refer to when we say traditional or herbal medicine?
Okay, these are medications or preparations that are extracted from trees or roots or just herbs. These could be either the leaves of the same trees, the trunk, or the roots. Then these are not your conventional medicine. These are extracts, and they can come in the form of powders. They can come in form of capsules if they are processed. Others, they'll come in tablets. But what is important to note is that these are not classified as conventional medicines.
Right. So you bring about that not all traditional herbal medicines may come in powder form or roots, but even when they're packaged in a capsule, you will still not regard them as being conventional.
Yeah, because they need to contain certain medicinal properties for them to be categorized as medicines. They'll have well, maybe food extracts or food supplements, vitamins and other nutrients, but they may not contain the medicinal component of
an actual lab-created drug.
Yes, yes.
All right. So when it comes to the Zambia Medical Association, what's your position on herbal as well as alternative or traditional medicines?
Well, ZMA has no issues with the use of alternative medicines. We, however, do not officially endorse them yet, but well, there are processes that are being worked on. Then we need to be very, very cautious with how we accept or deny these herbal preparations. Well, there are certain herbal preparations that have gone through the rigorous testing and, classification. These we have no problems. We've seen herbal teas around. We've seen people bringing up herbal medications. These, as you said in the introduction, will actually be a de facto alternative to the conventional medicine. And as ZMA, we think it would be foolhardy of us to disregard this alternative because the majority of the Zambian who access these herbal medications, they will access these herbal preparations, and we would want to throw a word of caution that as people are going for these preparations, they should be wary of their authenticity.
Right.
Okay, so that is our position.
Right. So you don't shun them, but you don't officially endorse them, but you are aware that people have the option of going for alternative medicines.
Yes, people do go for alternative medicine, and you may be aware that Zambia and China are working in cooperation in terms of medical doctor support. So usually in these teams, there's sometimes a a specialist in the herbal medicine.
The Chinese herbal medicine.
Exactly.
And our colleagues from China are quite advanced with their herbal medicines, it seems. I've heard a lot of people who have visited Chinese doctors talk about how good Chinese medicine has been. So could you expand a little bit on what exactly the Zambia-Chinese medical relationship is with regard to traditional medicine?
Well, it's not, I wouldn't say it's an official relationship,
All right.
like for the use of the same drugs, but if they are tested by the various regulatory bodies that we have, the Zambia Bureau of Standards, if they conform to standards, the Medicines and Regulatory Authority, if they are within the scope of being used safely, there's no challenge in accepting these medicines. But we haven't yet reached the stage whereby a medical doctor will prescribe.
Right, you walk into
those,
UTH and that's what your doctor
exactly
gets.
Because we still need a lot of research in these herbal preparations, and if people are there that are interested in carrying out these researches, ZMA will obviously support them, because we'll be interested in knowing the potence of these drugs and whether they would offer the cheap alternative which will work. We don't want to endorse something that will not work. You know, there's that tendency by Zambians to trust more the herbal preparations than the conventional medicine, and then it endangers their own health.
Right.
ZMA is a custodian of the health
of the people.
Yes,
right.
because it's an association of
Zambia Medical Association.
Exactly. So our primary concern is the health of the nation. So we wouldn't want to see a situation whereby people are shunning conventional medicine, which it has been tested and works. There's empirical evidence, and then they go for things that have not been subjected to testing on our Zambian people.
And I like what you've said, that people do, there's a point where people turn to traditional medicine. Because when we just opened the show, about 70% of, according to this particular statistic, about 70% of the Zambian population at one point or another will resort to using traditional or herbal medicine. And at first it may seem that 70% seems a bit high, but when we contextualize that Zambia is beyond just people who are in Lusaka and people who are in Livingstone or on the Copper Belt. We have a vast country with so many people, and we have more of a rural population than we do urban numbers when we put them in totality. So you talked about the Zambia Bureau of Standards and the different channels that medicines pass through before they become certified as usable and workable to treat a particular ailment. So could you just take us into what currently is the legislation and regulation around traditional or herbal medicines in Zambia?
Okay, we need to look at this from two perspectives. There is the herbal front. These are tried and tested, and they've gone through their own processes of extraction and testing, and have been presented to the relevant authorities for regulation, and they conform to certain allowable limits. These are the herbal products. There's a regulation that governs the use of these herbal products. But what may not be there is the use of herbs by unqualified people. We've seen, if you go to Soweto Market, we've seen those small ramshackles with doctors in inverted commas. They're always coming from particular countries. Those are the ones that we worry about, because they are not measured. They haven't been tried they haven't been tried, and so we do not know the content of those
of those little bottles or
Exactly.
bundles of whatever they may give you.
So, dating back to 2013 or 2015, government proposed that traditional medicines and traditional healers be regulated. And the Zambia Medical Association, under the leadership at that time of Dr. Mchachati, actually supported the proposed bill. Okay? And also the Traditional Healers Association of Zambia, I think, under Dr. Roderick Vongo at that time, we're glad that government has finally realized that alternative medicine is the way to go in terms of cushioning the demand for conventional medicines. So indeed, legislation is there for regulating these herbal products. You will notice that the ones that they will sell in shops, and there's always...
There's sort of disclaimer, is it?
No. There's a mark of having passed.
Okay, a certification.
It's a certification,
okay.
yes,
Okay.
by the regulatory body.
Okay.
And at the end of it all, Zambia Bureau of Standards makes sure it's up to the standard where it can be used safely on humans.
Okay. Though I've also noticed with some herbal products, there's not a disclaimer per se, but telling you that it's not prescription medicine, that you also may need to consult with your doctor in the event that you want to take this particular herb or whatever it is that they're giving you. So is that also a requirement by regulation?
It is, because it should not replace conventional medicines completely. If you are diabetic and you've been told to be on insulin, it's okay, you can use other supplements to boost your immunity and just improve your quality of life, but you must not be removed from insulin by the traditional healers.
Right.
Okay?
You can't say stop this, just use that.
Exactly, because we do not know the mechanism of action of those herbal medications, but generally they're accepted to be, others will probably fall in category of food supplements. They are not drugs per se. And so therefore that disclaimer by the manufacturers of those drugs is very, very important. As somebody is taking them, they should know that this is just a vitamin supplement. They'll list the things that are in there, but they are not to be taken as the
end or be all of...
Exactly. They are not the treatment for that ailment. They are used as adjuncts or added medications or supplements to the conventional...
Right. So when it comes to the legislation, we have, like you said, the biggest concern is not so much people who are selling packaged in capsules or different forms accredited by ZMA or by the Bureau of Standards. That's not so much our concern, but we are concerned about people in city market, local or otherwise, who have an unregulated environment in which they are treating people for ailments. Do we have a legislation that in the event that it was proven that a death was caused by someone using these particular medicines, does the law protect the patient from that type of exploitation or accidental death?
The patient is always protected by the law. First of all, the doctors, in inverted commas again, must be registered somehow.
To the association you mentioned?
Not our association.
So the healers...
The traditional healers, TPAs, traditional healers, traditional practitioners.
Right, they dropped healers.
They dropped it. They
yes.
are practitioners
They are
association of Zambia.
practitioners.
So if they are registered from there, because this association is recognized by government, they have their own regulations, then there must be some kind of protection also for the doctor. But like I said, there's always the danger that we do not know how poisonous those herbs can be if taken in overdose, how much of a certain branch or crushed leaves should somebody take
Right.
for them to be well?
So the biggest issue when it comes to traditional medicines is quantity, right? Is that the biggest challenge? Because the pharmacist will tell you 2 times a day, this is a 30 mg tablet, and for your age and for your particular ailment, you take it 3 times a day, and so on and so forth. So what is the challenge with traditional medicine? Is that the challenge?
The challenge with traditional medicines is that not much is known on the pharmacodynamics, pharmacokinetics. Well, these are words that...
Well, you can definitely educate us
yes,
on these terms.
We don't really know how they work in the body, okay? And we don't know their levels of toxicity, how much of that will become a poison. How long must they take them for them to be healed or cured of that ailment? But for the conventional medicines, like you've said it, we know that certain drugs will not work well if you've got a certain ailment. Let's say you've got a liver condition. Certain drugs will not be prescribed to you because they're excreted via the liver.
Or if you're pregnant, for example.
Exactly. But all this information is not there with our colleagues, alternative medicines. So, but if this information is there and it's proved, and it can be repeated in any setup, then it's safe to be used.
Right. So you've introduced us to terms like
pharmacodynamics
and pharmacokinetics.
Yes.
So what is the process? Do we have anything currently happening when it comes to traditional medicines to put them through the process of testing them and understanding how they work and their particular healing properties?
Well, legislation is that if you come up with a product which you are claiming cures a certain disease, it should go through a channel of tests, clinical trials. I would give examples, but those are still being worked on. We have somebody who had come up with herbal medication for HIV/AIDS. The channel is still being worked on,
and that has been ongoing for a while.
Because it's not a 1 week thing for a drug to be passed. It's about 5 phases or so. So
including actual trials.
By the time it gets to the human, it should have gotten through a lot of steps before it can be unleashed to the market.
Right. So it's
these rules and regulations are there by the Medicines Regulatory Authority. They would speak with authority more than I can, because they're the ones who know what to expect, what you should submit, and...
Right. So there is a process, basically, to say, this is what I've discovered. I think this particular route works for ABCD ailment.
Yes.
Then the process begins.
Yes, yes.
Right. An interesting question is, who funds these things? So if someone has, say, I think I've found the cure, is it self-funded? Do they have support, or all you do is give direction for the process to get this particular traditional medicine from traditional medicine to approve to say, yes, this does cure this ailment?
Well, it's like research. You need to find funders. Government will not directly fund a trial which they've got no idea where it's going.
More especially for herbal medicine, or a trial in general?
Any form. You need to have sponsors that will develop that drug, and probably at the end of it, or they'll own it. They'll own the rights to that medication. So government is not in that business. Government is in the business of using what has already been tested, because they're the sort of custodian of all the people.
Right.
So if you need to have your drug tested and tried, you will need to find your own sponsors.
Right. And in conclusion, What can we do to make sure that we fast track the process of having traditional medicine alongside conventional medicine, especially when we look at the cost factor, the fact that it's very expensive to get into a store and into a pharmacy and buy medical grade medication, though that's a repetition. So what can we do?
Well, for me, I think the ball is in the hands of the developers of these herbal remedies. Mm-hmm. They need to invest in research. They need to invest in study of what they want to put on the market. Mm-hmm. And then once those things have worked and they can prove that these things work, I'm sure the general medical practitioners, the conventional medical practitioners, will have no problems working with them. The example is China. It's not medical. For example, acupuncture is being accepted, so...
All right.
Sure.
On that particular note, this has been Talk With. We were talking with Dr. GABRIEL MPUNDU, who is the Zambia Medical Association Chairperson Publications, and we're looking at the legislation, regulations, and perceptions of traditional and alternative medicine. And so on that particular note, good night from me, KAMOTA MAYONDI. Catch me next Friday on Talk With.